They might talk about humour, music, film, books, football and box sets, exercise and maybe even food, trivia and sport, politics and health, sometimes well-being too. On the Life with Brian. On the Life with Brian.
Coming up on Life with Brian.
We used to read about the gigs in Glasgow and they seemed like legendary, like the gigs were like massive riots, you know, the bouncers would tap the fans and the fans would beat them up, and like every Clash or Stranglers gig was a riot, and it just sounded the most exciting thing ever.
I came from exactly the same background as Ava. There's no way that I was going to leave anything in the car, right? Fucking right, I've been doing the same, yes.
You know, if you've got Noel Lee and played together, there's something about those songs will sound 100 times better than if they did them with different musicians.
Hello and welcome once again to Life with Brian, hosted by myself, Mark, my partner in crime, Matthew, and of course, Mr. Brian McClare, who used to kick a ball around a field with some notoriety back when we were just mere lads. Brian, what have you been up to since our last episode with Susie McCabe?
I have been helping put some concrete down for some foundations in a friend's house. It's my second such appearance in such a concrete situation.
It's not a Trevor Jordash situation, is it?
No, I'm getting good at dampening down concrete, and it's completely level, spirit level, all sorted, you know, so...
All right, your talents know no bounds. Okay, let's introduce our guest, shall we? This man is the bassist and singer with punk bands The Membranes and Goldblade, a music journalist who runs the Louder Than War website and magazine, and has contributed to countless TV shows and documentaries on music. And it's our pleasure to have him on. It's a big welcome to John Robb. How are you, John?
I'm good, yeah, a bit wet, you know, unsurprising for being in Manchester.
John, can we revisit your first TV appearance, which I believe was at Bloomfield Road in the wonderful seaside resort of Blackpool?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that a minute ago. That's weird. Yeah, it was I think it was after Mickey Walsh's goal of the season. So, and at the end of the match, everyone ran on the pitch. So it's on Match of the Day. It's quite weird to think about it because we're in Division 2 then. So I don't know how. Maybe it was a Match of the Day and I'm getting all confused in my dotage. But there's just loads of little kids running on the muddy pitch at the end of the match, and that was my first telly appearance. What an amazing goal. I don't know if you remember it, Brian. It was,
I watched it. No, I watched the highlights of the game because was that the game against Fulham, that one?
I think it was. He every week he scored a goal like that.
Oh, yeah, well, because there was what was notable for me watching the game, I think I saw 6 goals. I think nearly all of them were headers, towering headers, you know. Paul Hart scored the first goal from a towering header, you know. And, Bob Hatton scored a header.
Bob Hatton was the best player, actually. I mean, he's like a journeyman player. I think we were about his 30th club in 10 years or something. When he turned up, he was great. He's getting a hat-trick every week, and we were top at Christmas, but we actually got relegated. I think it was that season or the season afterwards. Because the chairman sacked the manager, because the manager called the chairman a backstabbing bastard, so he got the sack. And it was Alan Brown who's actually won the classic 1953 team, and we went down. I think we're the only team to ever go down with a plus goal difference, and we never really recovered from that. So we've always been, apart from the glorious Ian Holloway era, but that was like a one-man drive into the Premiership.
It's just coincidentally, I was just talking about Ian Holloway, who did the fantastic time at Blackpool and several other clubs. There was an article popped up today, and I think it's the BBC about it was something to do with alluding to managers and vultures, and he's not had a job for 4 years in football.
No,
and it's just talking about how difficult it is to get back in sometimes. And he was saying that I think he's something like, I can't say the exact figure, but only a small number, say 13 games away from managing 1,000 league games in professional football, which is quite an incredible thing to do. And he was just talking really about the advantages of it. He's been able to spend a lot of time at home. He's now got I think he said he'd got 8 grandchildren. And he was also trying to become a portrait painter.
Oh, he's a painter. Yeah, I went to Bloomfield Road and had his portraits. He's coming back to pick them up, actually.
So he's now sort of got to a view that he needs to rewrite his CV and employ an agent in order for him to get any opportunity to get him back into football. So I thought that was quite an interesting little piece.
He's a great manager. I don't think there's ever a more perfect situation. But then when he managed Blackpool, it was just, like sometimes it's the right person at the right club, isn't it? And also because he had a tangerine head, didn't he? So he fitted kind of perfectly. But his attitude was amazing. It was so gung-ho. And he basically got there wasn't really any great players, probably a couple really, but he fired them up so much. That even when they lost, it still felt like they won. There was a great time. I think there was 4-0 down at half time to Arsenal. Everyone was chanting you've only got 4. And then in the second half, instead of just making sure we didn't get massacred 10-0, he just went out on a total park football, everyone go and attack. And we lost 4-2, but Arsenal were shitting it, because I don't think they expected everyone to just run at them like that, even though they didn't even have the skills to do it. But Ian Holloway made them feel like they had. I did see him when he was managing Grimsby, actually. I think it's his last job, wasn't it? And my mate owns Forest Green Rovers, so I went to the match there. And it was during the pandemic, so there was no one in the grounds because no one's allowed to go. You're only allowed to have 20 people in there. And I sat right behind Ian Holloway, and I never heard someone swearing in my life. It was literally every single word. It must be. I'd hate to be a manager. It must be so frustrating, mustn't it? Because all the things you want the players to do, unless you're a Premiership club, I guess, most of them just aren't capable of doing it, are they?
Well, even at the highest level, they're not capable of doing it. If you watch any kind of games like that, and that's the frustration of being involved in those managerial things, is that as soon as they walk onto the pitch, you lose control. And that's why they're always, not all of them, some of them don't do it, but a lot of people are just there at the sidelines getting frustrated and remonstrating by the fact that why are they not doing what I've told them to do? Why are they not doing what we've practiced all week? And they decide for whatever reason that they can that they know better in a particular situation. When just something that's popped into my head, when I was playing for Man United, Alex Ferguson was pretty accurate with regards to the information required to deal with defending restarts, set pieces, whatever they were called, in corners and free kicks. And we didn't have computers or iPads now. It was just sheets of paper, but they were up on the wall. He told you what your job was, so everybody was expected to know exactly what your job was. Now, I always felt that I should also know what other people's jobs were, because it could be important in some situations, because you've not got a lot of time in order to get set up to defend properly, knowing fine well the consequences will be hair dryers, and it might not be the person who's not doing their job, it could be someone else, right? And guaranteed, the very first corner that we would get against us defensively, somebody is not in their position where they're supposed to be. And every single time, in every single game he was playing, that was Paul Ince. And it's only a few minutes after that we've left the dressing room and got onto the pitch, and I could say, you're supposed to be there. No, I'm not. Yeah, just fucking do your job. That's what you're supposed to be. Now, I used to rewind it back to what he used to do. He wanted to be the last person onto the pitch for some bizarre reason, whether it was, his idea of how he was getting attuned to playing the game, and he wouldn't put his strip on until he got into the tunnel. And that was what he did. But at the time he's fucking done that, he's forgotten what his fucking job is, right? He's too busy fanning about his shirt and all that. And one day when I was sub, one of the games I'm sub, so I hid in the toilet, so he can't see anyone. Out he goes, last out, gets into the tunnel, he's walking down, he's just about to put his strip on, and I've tapped him on the back of the shoulder, and he turned round and he went fucking mental at me, in the tunnel. His teammate, because I had the audacity not to let him be the last person out, as if that was the worst thing that could happen in his career. Now, and I had to go out onto the pitch before he could put his shirt on. But you can see that was number of managers shouting and screaming at players who have just decided that they know better or they're forgotten.
Was it like a suspicion thing? People sort of tap the wall 3 times before they run the pitch?
Superstition, yeah. It was superstition. That's why I thought it was shit. Because people used to ask me, did I have any superstitions? I says, yes. I always try to put my left boot on my left foot. And they go, so what? I says, fuck's sake, it's like, you can't control, you've no control whatsoever over things. You certainly should have been in control of, you're standing at the front post, that's your fucking job, Paul.
Yeah. Well, ironically, he actually ended up being manager at Blackpool. Sort of not one of our great stints.
Because another thing I was going to say, because what happened there as well is that again, in the article I was reading today, and in fact, when I did the PFA and the Premier League, I think, sponsored a certificate in football management at Warwick University. So it was a degree, first year of a degree in football management. And in one part of this course, they were suggesting that in order to get yourself noticed and be around, you should get a seat right behind the dugout of the teams that are playing, maybe what you were saying, so that people can see. And I'm going, I don't think management's for me. I cannot be standing or sitting behind somebody else who's got a job hoping that they're going to fail. And I thought, this is not going to be for me if that's how you get a job.
Well, these days, what they do is they just go on Sky, don't they? Like Graham Potter gets wheeled out every time somebody's about to get the sack, or when Sean Dyche is under pressure at Everton, and Moyes is on the telly every 5 minutes.
Yeah, so in the lower league, it's even more depressing. You get every time you sack a manager, every year we seem to get another manager. There's that list of 10. It's and it's always the same people. They've managed about 20 clubs, never done very well. And you see all the betting odds, you think, oh God, this is upside down. It's all the best betting odds, the ones you never want, isn't it?
Mm.
Well,
but we've actually ended up with probably an old colleague of yours, Ryan. We got Steve Bruce now.
I know he's doing quite well.
He's doing a very good job.
He's had a good start. First, people thinking because it'd been Patchy's record, hasn't it? But he actually did a very good start. He's got it all disciplined up again. Although we did lose the last match, so. Fingers crossed.
John, I wanted to ask you, this love of Blackpool, I mean, doing my bit of research, you're from Fleetwood originally, aren't you? So just up the road.
I was born in Fleetwood. I was only there for about a day.
I'm just always intrigued when we have people on that are fans of clubs like Blackpool, especially in that area, because obviously you've got the bright lights of Main Road and Old Trafford down the road. Was it never an option, City or United or Bolton or anyone else, an option for you? It was always Blackpool, was it?
Bolton?
Well, I'm thinking somewhere
the bright lights of Bolton.
Their lights are less bright than ours. There are rivals along with Preston and Burnley. At school, until about 10, I don't think we even knew we had a local club. You just didn't realise that. It's not like now because there's so much information now. You know everything nowadays. But then it wasn't the Anglo-Italian Cup final, which is this really weird competition with all these second division teams from England plays second division teams from Italy, and it was on the telly, and Blackpool had beaten Como 11-0. It's like, we didn't even know we had a club, and they won 11-0. They must be pretty good. Then they won the final, and they had this all white kit on, so it looks a bit like Real Madrid, and it's like, wow, we actually have our team. That's when I started supporting him. But I didn't realise it was just some Mickey Mouse trophy, but it was good. Then we got promoted, I think, that year. Then we went straight back down again. But we were in the Division 1 for 1 year. And then we're always near the top of Division 2. So we used to go to every single match. We went to, like when you're a kid, you get really obsessed with stuff like this. We went to all the reserve games and everything. But until Punk came along, we were totally into football, and it was always really freezing. But most of the kids at school, like you say, they did support Premiership clubs, but there was a clutch of people who supported Blackpool as well, or had Blackpool as their second favourite team, but really supported all the big clubs, like Leeds or Everton. A lot of people supported Everton for some reason because they did have that sort of period in the late 60s, didn't they?
Alan Ball, I would imagine.
Well, he was one of ours. He
went to Everton from Blackpool.
He started at Blackpool, but he managed us twice and got us relegated twice. He was a brilliant player, but probably like what we talked about before, he just wasn't a manager. I think one thing I was going to add to that thing about the managers is that often the great players, and this is not always true, we don't make great managers because they really can't understand why some player on the pitch can't do what they used to be able to do themselves. Yeah, and I think Alan Ball was probably like that. We still liked him at Blackpool because it was great to have a world class player. One of the last ones we had, it was him and Emily Hughes. We had Emily Hughes as well at the same time.
Sorry, Brian, I rudely interrupted you there, Brian, when you were in mid-flow. But
no, I was only going to say that there was like just talking about those people like looking for your job and different things, but this is like the kind of paranoia you can get as a manager. When Paul Ince was a manager of Blackpool, he saw Mick Phelan, who was assistant to Alex Ferguson at the time. Or no, he might not have been working. I can't quite remember. Anyway, he was at the game for whatever reason. And Ince didn't say, "Hello, Mick, how you doing? How's things?" He just turned around and said to him, "You after my fucking job?" Mm-hmm. Mick, who had been there as assistant manager at Blackpool, went, "Are you fucking serious? You think that I'm fucking come back here again after the period of time that I had here?" Because he was right in the midst of when Owen Oyston was mismanaging the club.
Oh God, yeah, we're part of all that. It took us about 15 years to get him out. With a lot of help from the Spirit of Shankly people, actually. So they were telling us how to get rid of people running clubs, but that was a bitter, nasty battle. That was, But now he's owned by a fan. He's quite well off, man. He's obviously we're not. I don't think we're a Premiership club. I think those days are gone when you get a town in the Premiership. You might get a year and you're out again. It's Burnley are probably about the only small town that can sustain a Premiership club. But it's up and down all the time. And it's all about, they're like big supermarkets, aren't they, in the Premiership? It's a bit like the way music's gone, isn't it? It's just big behemoths dominating everything, taking everything, and it's not much fun, is it? In a way, it's better to support a small town team, isn't it? There's a community to it. When you find another fan, you feel like some kinship with them.
Just tell a story about when Mick Phelan was assistant to Gary Megson at Blackpool under that, when Oyston was in jail, and fairly regular, more than one occurrence, somebody would turn up or at the training ground or wherever they trained, some person you could tell right away that's a wrong'un, usually a big monster of a lad covered in tattoos, and scars. And they would say, "Can I help you?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm here for the trial." They go, "What trial?" "Well, Mr. Oyston sent me down because I did him a couple of favours when we were inside together, and he told me that when I got out, that he would get me a trial at Blackpool. So here I am, I'm here for the trial." And they said they were so scary that we had to go through the process of letting them trial, and the players are looking, and they were, most of them, I can't remember the men that were, but more than one, were terrible, but because they were so fierce, there was a big part of the management, so at the end of whatever they'd gone, after 2 or 3 days of going, Mick and Gary were in the office and they're going, right. So Gary Megson says to Mick, "Right, you tell that guy that he's finished, he's not coming tomorrow." He's going, "Fuck off, you tell him." No, you tell him. Oh, he was just like, no, fuck off, you're the manager. You're the one that's getting paid the big bucks. You fucking tell him. I'm not fucking, if you think I'm going to be telling this, I'd rather resign than fucking tell him he's not coming back tomorrow.
Wow.
It's a few times.
It's even worse than we thought. Jesus.
Yeah, so I said this when I was sort of reading the stuff about you, I was trying to get rid of them and all that came back into my head, about everybody was terrified for 2 or 3 days of losing all their preparation for the games that are coming up because they've got to look after this person who'd been in prison, who was pretty scary,
We had this really terrible training ground. It was like a marsh with a tin shed in it, which had been there since the 1930s, apparently. And Oyston was too tight to even build a proper training ground. So they changed all that now. But then it was like, how are you going to sign anybody who's going to turn up and go, "Is that it?"
Yeah.
But that was a brilliant thing about Holloway. He got in there and he made probably a pretty disastrous situation and turned it round into something quite brilliant, I mean, we nearly got promoted. We went down, we nearly got back up again the next season when we got to the player final against West Ham, and we nearly won that. So that was completely insane. But Oyston just wouldn't back him. He wouldn't get many players.
You're listening to Life with Brian.
I had a guy give me advice in the menopause the other day. A guy.
Hey, it's got the word men in it.
Okay, exactly. Because we can't have anything of our own.
when I was listening to Manchester United and Status Quo's "Come On You Reds" on tape, I would never have dreamed that one day that I would be on a Zoom call with one of the backing singers of that amazing track.
I think there's a real reason behind that that's not that. But he's made that up because I know he's going to make up about slipping in dog piss. There must be something even worse in reality.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
I've said to you before, this isn't necessarily a football podcast by any means, so I wanted to go down the route of chatting about music, and your name's obviously synonymous with the Manchester music scene, despite coming from Fleetwood and supporting Blackpool. I just wonder where this passion for pop came from.
Well, when I was a kid, I was really into glam rock. You know, you watch Top of the Pops, and every week there'd be like, not just Bowie and Bolan, who I always really loved, but also Slade, Sweet, even the Division 3 stuff like Mud, and there was people like Sparks. I loved all that. It was fantastic. And then when punk came along, it was like, you could get involved. You know, that's the thing about punk. He said, you know, you could be in a band, you could do a fanzine. And that's basically how it started. Punk was so exciting, and we got really so into it that we just did it. It was, by now people go to a college to learn how to be in a band, but then it was just the first gig we played, we couldn't even tune up. We tuned all the machine heads in a row. We were completely out of tune. Never been plugged in amps before. We didn't know. I mean, it's a horrible racket, but it's probably the greatest gig I'll ever play, just because it was so pure that the excitement of the music drove you to go on stage. You know, that was totally terrifying when you're 16. You still did it anyway. And that was what was ace about punk. It was about anybody could get up and do it. It didn't matter if you were any good or not. You could just go and do it. And that's basically how I've spent the last 40 odd years.
I hope you know how to tune a guitar now, though.
Weirdly, I can. Now you could, of course, you do it with your phone, but I can do it with my ear now, which is like, first time you do it, you go, wow, that's the magic art, the mystical art. But Brian, I see, but you're from Bells Hill, aren't you? So
I was born in Bells Hill, yeah. So I was like you, I was only there a day.
Oh, okay, yeah. So because there's actually a couple of bands that came out of Bells Hill, so you won't know them because you weren't there. But it's Teenage Fan Club that got really big.
Oh no, I don't know them.
Oh, yeah, really good band, aren't they? I used to know you, Norman, way back before he had his bands. He used to put bands on the Glasgow. I know all the Glasgow lots. I mean, Glasgow's like Manchester's got a really amazing scene. People make them easier. They're really good guys. They're from around there as well, aren't they? DMX Bandits. Yeah. So you grew up in Airdrie, didn't you? Airdrie.
Grew up in Airdrie, which there wasn't really many. There was a thing where there was a famous punk book. It was out recently about. This is Memorial Device. It's a really good writer, David Keenan, but he wrote a book about made-up bands who came from Airdrie. Yeah. Yeah, I've got that book. Yeah, so that was about the only kind of thing. But it was the same kind of thing. I'm a couple of years younger than you, but I loved all of that kind of thing as well. I love music. I don't know where the idea came from about music, but certainly with regards to punk, my mother would let me run around and like that, you know, so because it was still flares at the time, you know, and so I had a sort of hair, quite long hair, and I suppose as most people would have over my ears and all that kind of thing with big wings on the collar of your shirt, you know, paisley pattern. That would be the only thing. That would be the same colour of paisley patterns. And a jumper, you know, and trip flares and platforms and all that kind of thing, you know. So in my head and in spirit, but not in appearance, not at all, you know, where I had some other friends who were allowed to do that, you know, but my parents and my mother in particular frowned upon that sort of stuff. You know, I mean, she refused to buy me any music ever. She wouldn't buy me anything. Because it was just a waste of time, you know.
When you look at gigs, you know, people in the audience, punk gigs in '77, everyone looks like that. Everyone's got flares and platforms and long hair. You know, the bands have one look and the audience has got another, especially when you get further north, isn't it? So it took a bit of time for it to catch. And also, you got beaten up. I remember getting beaten up for having my hair cut above my ears. You know, people like, it wasn't even shocking, but for some reason, people who spent 7 years trying to get their hair to go beyond their ears took it upon themselves to beat up anybody who didn't have that long hair. You know, the 77 was like, just before punk really hit, it was the peak thing where everyone had 40-inch flares and those big knot ties. And like you said, the big collars on the shirts. It's funny with Paisley, isn't it? Because Paisley's actually from Paisley near Glasgow, isn't it? Which is, you couldn't get any less groovy.
But it was a Paisley shirt with a Paisley tie that looked exactly like the shirt, so you couldn't tell you had a tie on.
Now you really understand why punk happens.
This is what you're sending your children out to, not to school because you wear a school uniform, but this is what you had to wear at the weekend or whatever. You go to church or whatever. So yeah, very much the spirit. As I say, I would be 14, 15 then as well, when you were first playing your first gig, so a couple of years younger, So.
Yeah, it's quite a lot at that time. We used to read about the gigs in Glasgow, and they seemed like legendary. Like the gigs were like massive riots. The bouncers would tap the fans, and the fans would beat them up. And like every Clash or Stranglers gig was a riot, and it just sounded the most exciting thing ever.
Well, I mean, but part of that, I suppose, is the same kind of thing. That there's no such thing as bad publicity, is there? So there's got to be sort of thing where people want to go to your gig, hopefully for the music, the songs, the tunes, or whatever else, and the musicality. But if there was a fight at it or whatever else it is, it would attract certain elements to people and young people. If it's something, I know what it was like in the 70s, particularly growing up in areas like when you were talking about but exactly the same as growing up in Blackpool when there was nothing to do and nothing to look forward to, apart from potentially football, music, some circumstances, and academia, but everybody else was just struggling, So fighting and dancing and punk and pogo and all that was I think that was kind of godsend in a way because if you're up pogoing around and all that, there's not really much energy left for violence, You're knackered, don't you? These are Atomic kids. These Atomic kids that never did anything at school, did they? These are the ones that were dodging PE and all that, And all of a sudden they're jumping up and down for 45 minutes at a frenetic pace, something they'd never done before,
I guess
speed.
Too tired to fight after that,
You both grew up on the outskirts of big cities, obviously Manchester and Glasgow, but in those sort of that suburban life, I guess you looked to those cities as your escapism, did you?
In a way, but you definitely had your own thing as well. It's a lot of punk bands wouldn't play Blackpool, so we had to make our own punk culture. So we had to make it in a vacuum. And when I wrote a book about goth last year, and a lot of the bands and a lot of the main people and the main protagonists of that world came out of really nothing towns like Northampton or even big cities. Like, a lot of them came out of Leeds, and Leeds wasn't like it is now. There wasn't really a cultural thing there. The people, instead of like waiting for London to come up with the ideas, people just made them up on their own, And I think that was interesting. That's like everyone's misinterpretation of punk, because what we thought it was nothing like that at all. Our misinterpretation became our art form, and I think that happened to a lot of people of my generation. It wasn't, you weren't waiting for the instruction manual of how to do it. You just carried on doing it your own way,
Yeah, I mean, you say about Leeds not being as it is now, but you could say that about a lot of cities. I mean, you would have obviously grown up in the Manchester scene, Brian in the Glasgow scene, two cities that would have been very different from the way they are now. But I mean, what are your memories of going, sort of hanging out in Manchester in that punk scene in the 70s?
Well, initially, when we finally got somebody who could actually drive, because remember, the public transport's always been crap, and the last train back would be 10 o'clock. You'd have to sleep on the station. Or finally, this kid learned to drive out a car so we could go to gigs. And go to Manchester was a bit of trepidation because it was quite a rough place then, and you were an outsider, you weren't from there. But it was okay. Liverpool's a bit heavier because they could catch your accents that you weren't from round there. There's a couple of times with them days, people, you just walk around and people say, this little thing they used to do, they go, hey, what time is it? And you go, oh, it's about 8 o'clock. Like your accent. And then you're not from around here, so you get chased around the town. But in Manchester, didn't happen so much because it's a bit more Lancashire, I suppose. And also, I think there's more people went to Manchester then, but it was still like pretty hairy place. Like most of the centre was pretty derelict. That was peak post-industrial Manchester. Now when I look out the window here in Cuba, it's it looks like LA. It's a completely different place. Where music did that. As music changed the city.
Where you are.
Oh yeah, it's totally different.
You see all the skyscrapers and all that, yeah.
Oh yeah,
you can see all the skyscrapers and all that. Yeah.
I'm looking at them right now, and the cranes and stuff. I think it looks great. I like the way Manchester could pretend it's like like Chicago or New York or something. It has that confidence, doesn't it, to do that? Whereas other places are scared to do it, aren't they? I think a lot of that was sparked by music, but I think the football helped as well. Having United and then now City's been like, massive successful clubs on the world stage. It does empower a city. It's not a backwater, is it? You get big cities, they don't have that, and they do feel a bit decayed, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you Brian, almost saw that crossover as well. You'd have moved to Manchester in the late 80s. It wouldn't have been the kind of place it is now, like looking like Los Angeles, as John said. But you would have seen that transition. You would have been part of it. You were very much a music-loving footballer, so you would have been going to gigs and experiencing probably the same sort of thing that John did.
Well, I mean, certainly we'd go to town quite a lot. I mean, I was just stuck, but I was in leafy Cheshire most of the time, you know, so that one of the things a lot of the stuff, and I said before, a lot of the things you would have liked to have done is one of the things that became quite noticeable to me almost immediately when I went to United under Alex Ferguson was this. When I was at Celtic, it was kind of a lot of freedom about it. In fact, I didn't even consider that I shouldn't be going into Glasgow on a Thursday night, for example, if I wanted to go to a gig, right, and have a couple of pints and then still come up for training on Friday morning and play the game on a Saturday. And there was never any issue about that, but it became quite clear that going out on a Thursdays was a no-no. And then when you got to know Alex Ferguson a wee bit better, it was like going out any time was a no-no, according to him, you know, in a way. So it was like you should be devoted completely to football. And God forgive you if you found out you were out somewhere. Or even, you know, because he very quickly developed this network, or there was a network, people who couldn't wait to grass you up. You know, that if she saw you somewhere, and it didn't matter what night of the week it was, you know, clearly it wouldn't have been a Friday before the game, but you might have been tempted to think, oh, I'll just go, will I go, will I not? And a lot of the times you wouldn't go because you'd be shitting yourself thinking he's going to find out. And it doesn't matter if it was, my view, it was going to be the best event of the year. He would be, because he was stuck in the criminals of the 50s and all that kind of thing, he would just be prepared to lambast you and maybe even penalise you financially. Now, it wasn't like it is now with the players. If he took a week's wages off you, it was a bit of a hit, you know. And these are the things that are in your head all the time with regards, will Gale go, do or not go, you know. And
did he... Yeah, did he sign? Did he sell Lee Sharp because of this?
Well, I think there was lots of things that I think again there was lots of situations that probably occurred. I mean, I've said this so many times, John. You can look at things a different way, right? So Sharpie and Giggs are the two young lads that are going out and enjoying. Quite right, enjoying themselves, performing, playing well at the football pitch, playing for Manchester United, and they're going out on a Saturday night, maybe a Sunday, right? And they're having the benefits that go with that. Now, every kind of instance that happened in that period of time, Sharpie always got caught, right? Giggsy was always there, but he had this ability to be fucking hiding in the corner somewhere, you know? So whereas Sharpie was just full on, you know, all that. Like celebration, you know, Sharpie's celebration with his Elvis impression when he scored a goal, you know, Sharpie was right into it and all that kind of thing. So there was kind of nowhere to hide, really, for him. And he always got caught. And I think what happened, I think just that Fergie maybe just got exasperated by it, thinking he wasn't going to change. And indeed, I think the offer that they got from Leeds was very good, really. And then he was clearly looking at succession and what players he had round about. I mean, that's one of the things he was magnificent at, you know, deciding when players' time had run its course, irrespective of what age you were, you know. And looking to see who he could bring in, and it developed, and the success continued and got better and better as it went along. So, I mean, I know now that Sharpie's he still finds difficult, you know, with regards to Alex Ferguson, how he was treated, you know. But
do you think there was an element because of George?
I think, you know,
because of George.
I think that he'd learned all those things, but you know, about all the things that happened. And indeed, when Fergie was at Aberdeen, a lot of young players got in the team early on. Eric Black, Neil Simpson, Neil Cooper, Hewitt, and I think that they didn't take them out often enough. They just kept playing them and assuming that they'll be able to deal with the rigours of the game, because they ended up playing 60 games a season at 19, 20. So Neil Cooper at 16, and I think further down the line that had an effect on their career and their life, I think. And he learned from those lessons that that young players need to be looked after from that point of view, to be sheltered from it. And the expectation was that, they understand that, you're going to go out, but behave yourself when you're going out and make sure you get enough rest. But the thing is, he knew everything that was going on, So, I mean, some of the things in the morning, getting called into his office and accused of being, we were senior players, not just then, and they were like, and the Sharpie were being like nearly every day,
Well, this is your chance to grass up a few names, John, isn't it? I mean, you were on the scene in this era in Manchester when music and football were combining together, this cultural period for the city. You must have seen a few familiar faces out and about.
Yeah, but you didn't see a lot of the footballers around at the gigs. I mean, occasionally, you'd see someone like David Beckham at a gig, an Oasis gig or something, or you often will see a few City players actually. Haaland, he would turn up at gigs, and he actually has really good music taste. He would turn up at not just Oasis. I mean, I like Oasis, but like he'd be turning up at quite underground kind of gigs as well. And the one you saw the most actually was Stuart Pearce, because Stuart's really into punk, isn't he? So you've seen a lot of punk gigs all over the country. He still goes to the punk festival in Blackpool, and nobody bothers him. That's the funny thing. He stands because he's quite imposing, isn't he? I'm sure you played against him, Brian, but he's quite a big bloke, isn't he? And he looks quite scary.
No, he's not a big bloke. He just looks scary. That's just
he just stands with his arms folded, staring like that. And people go, "There's Stuart Pearce, but I'm not going to speak to him." But when you speak to him, of course, he's actually nice. He's funny, isn't he?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. As you said, he does love his music. Just one thing I read a quote about you, which I thought was fantastic. With regards to David Beckham, when I'm wearing a Crass t-shirt, and you allegedly said, you think you thought that he knew who Crass were, but not what they were. And I was pissed, and I was pissing myself laughing when I was reading this thing. I was going, that's absolutely perfect, because that's exactly right what it is. It could have been any C-shirt or anywhere it is. He had an idea of who they were, and they were quite popular somewhere, but not a fucking clue at all about anything to do with what they were.
I also heard that his sort of stylist put the shirt on him because actually the word, because it's quite crass. Actually, he thought that was quite funny to get him to wear it because it's actually a crass thing to do. But I don't think he didn't really get the joke, did he?
The whole thing. No, because he's not. No, he's a great football player, but no.
Yeah, I mean, his interviews are funny, aren't they? Just like think, wow, there's anything going on in there. But it's not a great thing that you can actually just do with your feet and stuff. It's that sort of disconnect. Or he's just a really quiet bloke who's not very good at explaining himself. He doesn't have to be like that at all, does he?
No. It's just not, but then you get involved in it. I mean, like what he's involved in, all the stuff roundabout that and all Spice Girls and all that stuff. It's all facile, isn't it? It's all this and there's always somebody behind them there all the time saying, "This is where you should go. This is how you should stand. This is how you should look," because theirs is an industry. So that Posh and Bex is an industry. Behind that industry, there's several people who use, always. Words that there's vultures waiting to get fed. You know more about that because you've been involved and seen all sorts of shit. But there's loads of people behind it that nobody will ever heard of in music, in particular, probably, who have had a right good, have several very good meals out of people, but nobody will ever heard of them.
Do you more on the kind of Roy Keane sort of end of things? That kind of complete look of disdain that he has for that kind of world, which is quite funny, actually. Yeah. Psychotic disdain.
Great name for a punk band, that.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I was just thinking that because he was at Forest at the same time as Stuart was at Forest. I wonder if both of them were standing at gigs together, They probably weren't talking to each other, because I wasn't surprised about that, staring at each other across the room, sharing the dressing room with each other, but looking at each other going, "Who are you looking at?" "Don't you fucking look at me, don't come another step forward to me, Like, what are you doing?"
Brian talked about it there with the press. I want to talk about this transition from love of music and being a musician to writing about music and going into music journalism. Was that just a natural progression for you?
Well, it's just, I think, because that punk thing where you can just have a go at anything, you just go and do it. So somebody brought a fanzine to school, like a punk fanzine, and we just started doing that as well. I thought, oh, yeah, well, you can actually write about this stuff. Let's do that. So that's how I started. And then I got, then the fanzine did quite well. And then I just started writing for the music papers. And nobody ever told you what to do. That was the funny thing. You think you go to start writing live reviews, and somebody go, you should do a bit like this or a bit like that. Nobody, you just left on your own, which I think is the best way, really. And luckily, I wrote for Sounds, which is one of the music papers at the time. Obviously, they don't exist anymore. But they never told you who to write about or how to write about them. You just send the stuff in, they would print it, and you just send more stuff in, they print more. And within 6 months, you're writing like half the paper, and nobody ever said anything. Yeah. So it was a completely free reign, and I'd be going out all the time, and I could interview who I wanted. So that's how I ended up doing the first ever Nirvana interview, just because I liked the demo of the first single. It's just that I heard it in my mate's record shop, rang the band up at his mum's house in Aberdeen in America, not the one in Scotland, and just interviewed him there on the phone. And that was the first. I didn't know that time. I didn't even know they're going to be big. You just thought, this is great, I'll go and interview them. And to me, that's the best way of doing music writing. The more irresponsible it is, the better it is, really. It's not like proper journalism where you have to put facts in. You just make it up as you go along. But the tragedy of the world is, which I think that works really well in pop culture. But now all the politicians operate in pop culture way where they think you don't have to have any facts or anything. It's great in music because it's all made up. But in real life, if you got your finger on the nuclear button, I kind of hope someone's a bit more responsible than we all were.
Yeah, but if you had responsibilities and if you had an editor breathing down your neck, which I assume people do these days, if these journalists exist in the current world we live in, you probably wouldn't have had that freedom to do that.
Oh, yeah.
The thought of, I mean, it's something I wanted to touch on. You kind of brought it up, but to just contact a band like Nirvana, admittedly not globally known as they went on to become, but how did that come about? You just thought, right, I want to speak to these guys. I'm going to find out where they are, and I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah, that's how I've always done it. I just asked the record label for the phone number. They go, if you want it. They didn't really think, why do you, they were kind of thinking, why do you want to interview them? So I just rang them. I've still got the number somewhere. I might go and ring them and see who lives there now. but to me, that in music, that's the best. It's always been the best stuff. The best bands are self-taught. I mean, even Oasis. That was self-taught. That was just a lad in Burnage, Cal State in Manchester, just got a guitar and kept playing it and somehow started writing really great songs. It wasn't, there was no big, I mean, some bands, they have a whole organisation, and like Brian was saying a minute ago, the Vultures, the Browns, Beckham, whatever. But some people actually just do it by doing it, and they're always kind of more interesting people. I think with music as well, you can be self-taught. You can learn the whole history of music and how it all gets put together and work it all out yourself. And I think they're kind of interesting, those people.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have been surrounded by, like now, I imagine they've got a ring of steel, they've got a press team around them, and they would bat away these answers. I mean, when you got through to Nirvana, I mean, was it Kurt you got through to, or who was it?
Yeah, it's his mum. She answered the phone. It's his mum's house. And I can remember her going, Kurt, there's somebody on the phone for you. And he comes running down the stairs, dead excited. But somebody from England is going to interview him. It's like, I mean, you can't imagine. But of course, they could have never made it. And no one would care about that story. It's all been 6 months later. We went out to New York to interview, and they were doing a sport tour. And they're staying in a tiny flat in New York. And me and the photographer got there. And we said, well, we'll see you tomorrow for the interview. He said, no, and the press agent guy said, you're all staying here. We all had to squash in this little flat for 4 days with 2 bands, and one of them was Nirvana. Now, if they never made it, no one would care about that story because they're one of the most famous bands of all time. We got to know them really well. I mean, I was helping them carry the gear and out the venue and everything. But there's no sign they were going to be a big band at that time. It's only when Teen Spirit came out, the thing went ballistic. I mean, it is one of the greatest rock and roll records ever released. It's one of those records that completely changes culture. One day everyone's wearing one pair of trousers, the next day everyone's wearing a different pair of trousers. Like Brian was saying about, the punk thing. I mean, it took a couple of years to get to Airdrie, but it got there in the end, the Pistols changed culture as well, didn't they,
Did you form that relationship with the band that you were able to keep this going when the success did come? Did you gain their trust, I imagine?
interviewed about 3 times, but because they're American, I wouldn't see them as much, So I didn't really. I mean, obviously they would know who I was, and I know who they were. Because people in music all know each other, like people in football all know each other as well. These little mini universes, aren't they? I mean, the Manchester thing's different, isn't it? Because we're all in each other's pockets, and we've all known each other for years. I mean, like Noel Gallagher, I knew him before he did anything. He was just a kid at gigs, and that's how I got to know him. Just spoke to him. I see him at every single gig on his own, and I start speaking to him in the end, and that's when I knew him way back. So all these so the British ones, you kind of know socially before they even get bands and that.
Have you managed to get a ticket for the Oasis? Seeing as you're in with Noel.
Yeah, I'll get. Well, I'm not even bothered trying yet, but I will get one. Yeah.
I'd say guest list is. You're going to do a Brian and blag it in, but I mean, again, we can't.
I'm not going.
No, but you'd be the only gig I probably don't blag into.
Is that a City United thing, or is that?
No. Nothing to do with that, because like you, that I'd known about them before it became anything, because they were still washing cars and at the time, with Paul Ashby.
Oh yeah, I knew that story. Liam Gallagher was washing cars at Man United, wasn't he? And did he have a big run-in with somebody about those? Somebody telling me this the other day. It's a really funny story. Yeah,
wasn't you, Brian? Was it?
Well, the thing I met Liam at not last year's FA Cup final, the one before. He was there in a box with Manny while I'd blagged into the FA Cup final, so I was doing a little corporate thing. And so I was chatting away to them, because I know Manny quite well, but I was chatting away and I was just talking about those times. He says that was great. He says we used to, the best thing about it was all of you used to have all this money and these coins in your cigarette thing at the time, cigarette tray, and we used to take that. We're making more money taking coins. We're making more money taking coins out of Mark Hughes and Brian Robson and Steve Bruce's cars than we were getting paid by Paul Ashby, So, it's fantastic, Not only are we getting to do this, but we're robbing those red bastards,
You didn't.
He said 2 years ago, he was buzzing off it, like that.
I can just imagine him telling that story.
Well, he did well to get money out of you, Brian. I'd say that.
No.
He's just got notes. He's just got notes in his glove compartment.
Hey, listen, I came from exactly the same background as Ava. There's no way that I was going to leave anything in the car, right? The nice.
Yeah, you knew him. You were done the same.
Temptation, John. Yeah, fucking right. I've been doing the same. Yeah, so I'm like, not leaving anything in the car,
You should have said to when you've seen him, I'll clean your car up now, check what's in your compartment's probably a load of drugs in it.
It's a imagine what's in his car, yeah.
He can't even drive. Noel can't drive, can he? So maybe he can't. No. Manny's a good lad, isn't he? I know Manny a long time. Yeah. He's really funny, isn't he? So. Yeah.
We were talking about music and generation, how it affects people. But I mean, the Oasis in the 90s with the Manchester music scene. I mean, I know you can argue that the Smiths were there before and plenty of other Manchester bands, but really at that time, yes, if you want to go further back, but that really was an era where the culture changed, and at that time it was almost like someone flicked a switch to me. Anyway, I mean, you were there on the ground. Is that how you saw it?
No, it was a continuation really when you look at it from our perspective. So for me, it starts at the Buzzcocks. I think. The Buzzcocks are an amazing band, and Pete Shelley's one of the greatest pop songwriters ever in the punk period. So they had hits, which is quite amazing. The 1960s was a big scene, Manchester, sort of tailed off a bit. But the Buzzcocks put the Pistols gig on, the 2 Pistols gigs on in Manchester, where really, when you look at it, it's where everything changes. The people go to those gigs, form bands, Joy Division, Morrissey's there, Mark Swift and the Falls there. It's a game-changing gigs. The whole skyline starts in those 2 gigs. It's such a great line as you can see it. So the Buzzcocks, then Joy Division, who Buzzcocks helped when they started, they helped pay to make the record. They took them out on tour. And then you get, Smiths and the Falls. So it's a line, one band after another. And then Oasis are probably the last band of that sort of punk generation because they're the youngest. The last band to make it, but when they made it absolutely supernova, didn't they? Literally, it's like they're like the biggest bands in the country, not just the biggest band out of Manchester. The 90s, Noel Lee, the 2 most famous people in the country, and that the bands before being more cults. Smiths are big, but nothing at this level. It's very rarely anybody gets to that point. So I can understand why they've seen the main game-changing band. But they're coming out of a culture that's already established, really. It's just they took the Stone Roses thing and put it into another space, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean culturally, really, and I think what I mean by it is if you took all this talk about the reunion, it just goes to show how popular they were and still are, and there's still that generation. I mean, I put myself in that bracket of people that it means such a lot. I mean, I wasn't the biggest Oasis fan, but I mean, there are people literally falling over themselves to go and see a band who haven't really done anything of any note, without no offence, but for 30 years, you know, or when they did, you know, when they came on the scene was 30 years ago, and there's people that are still absolutely obsessed with this band.
They're bigger now than they were then. I just looked at the American dates, sold them out an hour. It's 90,000 people a gig. It's they never played gigs that size when they were going. And I see Australia this morning. They had another one in Melbourne on. That's about 80,000 capacity nights in a row, which is quite amazing, isn't it? You know, for bands that have been around a long time. You know, if they make another record, if they make this into a long-term thing, they could end up being bigger this time round than they were last time round, you know.
Could you see that? Can you see another album on the horizon?
What surprised me, I mean, Noel Gallagher's always writing songs. It's whether they could work would he work as another. He's not going to make a misstep, you know. He's not going to make a record that he's not going to do it if it doesn't work, basically, you know. And he may do it, he may not. I don't know. At the moment, everybody's concentrating on getting through the gigs. But I think they'll do the gigs, and I think they'll sound good, you know, because I think the tech now of gigs is so high level that you can make anything work, you know. And I think is their situation volatile? Probably is you know, with the two brothers, you know, falling in and out. That's natural brothers, isn't it? But there's ways around that as well. You don't have to all sit in a tiny little van together. You can go on you have a tour bus each if you want, or they may just get on just like the Rolling Stones, isn't it? Jagger and Richards didn't get on for years, but they worked out to do it. And now they're really good buddies again. You know, you turn up and go, what was the argument? I can't remember what it was now. It must be like that in football as well, you know, Brian. There must be players you don't get on with. And then
I think it's pretty relevant to people that are really close to, that sort of almost like brothers, and indeed are brothers, aren't they? You know, because there's plenty of brothers in bands who've fallen out big style, you know. And the thing that I had heard, which was, whether it was right or not, but I like the idea of it, that Liam, being the youngest, just wanted his brother back.
Yeah, that's the thing, in it. It's quite sweet,
actually.
Necessarily
to do with Oasis, and he just wanted to have a relationship with his brother, you know, his big brother, you know, his big wee brother.
And the mother as well, you know, you think.
Yeah.
Can you see that coming on the back of this, John? I mean, I don't know how well you know the guys, you know them, but, you know, do you think this could be like the sort of a second coming, and maybe time heals everything, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah. I think they're pretty well gone. And I think, I mean, you don't know the extent of what the plan is. You know, maybe the plan's just to do the world tour. They're meant to be selling their catalogue, aren't they, for loads of money, and they needed a tour to pump up the interest. Maybe that's what's going on, or maybe they just I think they have to start rehearsing. God knows who's in the bands, but they start rehearsing and they go, wow, this sounds great. I mean, people always say that people only do it for the money, and of course we do like to get paid for things. But I think there's also a thing when you have certain people in a room, something magical happens. And if you're actually in that room, you know, if you've got Noel and Liam playing together, there's something about those songs will sound 100 times better than if they did them with different musicians, you know. And the audience feels that, but also the band feels that. They go, when you sing that song, it just sounds like something else. But when you play guitar on it, it sounds like something else. And that magic is, you're lucky to have that magic, you know. And that's why people put themselves through these kind of things. Again, not just the money, you know, just that thing where it just sounds, when rock and roll sounds at its best, it's just the greatest art form in the world, isn't it?
Mm. Well, you just talking about songs there, John, and doing this research, that one of my new favourite songs is the universe explodes into a billion photons of pure white light.
Yeah,
but I prefer the version with the choir.
Oh yeah, no, I like working with choir. So explain to the,
you know,
to
so
the listeners.
when I was looking at that and listening to that, I'm wondering which part of this 16 and 17-year-old punk was yearning to be a chorister.
Well, I'm not actually the chorister, because you can tell by my speaking voice I'm not an opera singer. So I do the. This is actually one of the songs on my band from about 3 or 4 years ago. So we brought a choir and sing it, because I was in Estonia do some talks, and they have a tradition of choirs there. So every woman in Estonia has been in the choir. It's quite amazing. And the reason for it was that when the Russians took the country over, they banned the Estonian language, and the only place you could do Estonian language was in a choir. So everybody was in a choir, but all the parts are written for women. So to go to see these choir gigs, these amazing voices, and it's really haunting, and it's really beautiful music. And I went to see one choir, and I go, so let's do a gig together. And instead of them going, well, I'm not doing a gig with you, and they go, yeah, go on, let's do it. So we did one in Estonian choir, and it was mind-blowing. So I got really into choirs. So I did a few choir gigs in England, and I'll put them on a record as well. So that's where the choir thing comes from.
It's brilliant. I think it's great because there's James did it recently, and I thought that their gigs were wonderful when they had the choir.
Oh yeah, I went to one of the Apollo. Yeah,
the Shed Seven said they were going to do that as well. I think with some of the reworkings of the recent songs on the last version of their greatest hits. So I think some of the stuff's brilliant when you've got choirs. They
don't need a choir; they've got Rowetta, so like a one-woman choir. She's got an amazing voice. He's like 40 people all at once, yeah. But it does sound amazing, because I was thinking a time like now where the world's completely, everyone's arguing everyone else. It's great to have something that's in harmony. That's what I liked about choirs, is it's getting a lot of people into a harmonious situation. So I really enjoyed that, And the song was about the universe, and I've always been to the universe. In a way, the 16-year-old me could have actually, I would have no idea how to do it, but I would have dared to do it. That's like now I had to go to Estonia to teach the choir all the parts. That was the mad bit. So I had to stand in front of them and sing the parts at 40 women in the choir. And I can't really sing properly because I'm a punk singer. I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then instead of them all laughing, they just go, okay, like this. You go, oh, God, they actually got it. but it was punk rock that taught me that I wouldn't go in the room and think, oh, I can't really sing. You don't do that. You just go in and start doing it. And that was the brilliant thing about punk. It made you feel invincible.
Life with Brian, life with Brian, life with Brian.
It is that time again. It's the quiz. And in honour of our guest, John Robb, whose band The Membranes was formed in punk's heyday of 1977, we've decided to call this one Never Mind the Pollocks, in homage to punk royalty, the Sex Pistols' famous debut album, Never Mind the Bollocks, that was released in the same year. All you both have to do is identify which of the following Pollocks are footballers and which ones are imposters by saying Pollocks if they're a player or Bollocks if they're not. It's a penalty shootout with you taking 5 alternate shots to determine the victor. Are you both happy with the rules?
Yeah.
All right. Remember, it's Pollock for a player and Bollocks if we're just leading you up the garden path. Right, John, are you all going to get to go first? Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. Your first penalty is Jamie Pollock.
Pollock.
Pollock, yes. Jamie is true. Jamie played most notably.
There's already a whiff of a fix here along this.
Don't jump in two-footed, Brian. You haven't heard the rest of the questions yet. Jamie played most notably for Middlesbrough and Manchester City, for or against whom he scored one of the most famous own goals of modern times, lobbing the ball over an opposition player before looping a header over his own goalkeeper. It essentially sent Manchester City down to the third tier in the late 90s. So, John, you've taken an early 1-0 lead.
Yeah. For all your moaning, Brian, you know.
I'm just making a comment, that's all.
Protesting already.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Choccy, you step up to the mark with another one. Another Jamie Pollock.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Bollocks.
Well, the Bollocks isn't an answer. Oh, yeah. So
it is an answer.
It's your rules.
I didn't know. I thought you were just cursing at me. So you're saying Bollocks, yeah? Well, you're wrong. It's a Pollock. It's true.
Yes, right.
This Jamie Pollock played for Motherwell, East Fife, Albion Rovers, and Clyde, having also played for, yes, you guessed it, Scottish junior club Pollock.
Wait, when?
Quite recently.
It was recently, is it?
Aye. All right. Okay, John.
That was quite difficult, that.
It is, yeah. Well,
no, it's not difficult because it doesn't matter which way around it was. He could have asked me that question first and I got it right or wrong.
Yeah, Brian's anger ruined that for him, you see.
Yeah, look at the jaw.
Hot-headedness.
Yeah, you psyched him out. Right, John, you've got a 1-0 lead, and your second one is, looky here. It's yet another Jamie Pollock.
I'm going to have to go for Bollocks this time.
Oh, you fluffed it. This is this is Pollock. Yeah, our third Jamie Pollock is an American female footballer who turned out in the Australian League for Melbourne Victory and South Melbourne.
I need to swap up my Australian soccer.
What's up on your Pollocks?
Yeah.
Where did you find that?
Okay, Matthew, over to you.
All right, concentrate, Brian. Come on.
You've got some search engine, Mark.
You don't want to know what's on my search engine.
A lot of time on his hands. Okay, Brian, steady yourself. You're up next with D. Pollock.
Bollocks.
Yeah. I assume you're not just swearing at me. Your answer is bollocks. False. D was an American actor who starred in many of US TV Western shows of the 50s and 60s, most notably in Gunslinger playing Billy Urchin.
There you go, 1-1.
Wow, that's pretty obscure, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's only going to get worse. Right, John, your third spot kick is Oliver Pollock.
Pollock.
Oh, no. Splayed it wide. It's bollocks. It's false. Oliver Pollock was an American merchant who helped finance the revolution against Britain and is credited with inadvertently creating the dollar sign we still use today.
Oh, that's a cool little fact. Yeah.
Do you know?
I'm going to remember that.
Do you know any more about that, Mark?
Nope, that's all I know.
What's the score check?
It's ones each.
Although he did exist, didn't he? So therefore I scored because I said Pollock, not Bollock. So if you rewind,
well,
3.
So we're at ones each.
They all exist.
Yeah, they all exist. They're just whether they're players or not. Right, Matthew.
Brian, over to you now, and it's Finley Pollock.
Bollocks.
No, it's Pollock. It's true. This Pollock is a midfielder for Wraith Rovers, where he plays alongside a Dick, Liam Dick to be precise.
I've seen Wraith Rovers grounds right on the coast.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah, Scottish football grounds. When we tour Scotland, we always go to the little grounds. We see some great ones. Arbroath's great, coldest ground in the country. It's virtually on the beach, isn't it? And then we do a gig and we been there. Yeah, we said Cowden Beath as well. And you can actually get through the turnstile onto the pitch. The Blue Brazil written above the turnstile. Yeah. So we were at a gig and we were just saying to the crowd, we went to Cowden Beath and somebody goes, "You got to go to Brecon City. One of the stands is a hedge." And we thought they must have made that up. And we went there, and it's a 20-foot high hedge down one side of it.
Right.
Yeah. You've been there, yeah? You can see through the hedge, so I don't even know why it's there.
All right.
To keep the wind off.
Right, John, penalty number 4, and it's Fergus Pollock.
Bollock.
Bollocks, yes, you've edged back into the lead. Fergus is a British car designer whose most noted designs include the Renault Espace and several Jaguar XK and XJ models. So 2-1, and pressure's back on Brian.
I love the way John just doesn't mess around. He's like a centre-back taking a penalty.
Yeah.
Just runs up and smacks it.
Stuart Pearce
I'm not going to
style.
score anyway. Yeah. Didn't always go that well.
Choccy, your penultimate go is Matty Pollock.
Pollock.
Pollock with a P.
With a P.
Yeah.
P, please, Bob.
Yep, Pollock, it's true. Matty is a defender at Watford who scored his first goal for the club recently in a League Cup tie. He also happens to be the son of Jamie Pollock, number 1 from this quiz earlier on.
Okay, John. So it's 2s each. If you can score here, then Brian cannot win. And so your final one is Hugh Pollock.
Bollock with a B.
Bollocks, you are right, and you've taken the 3-2 lead. Hugh was a publishing editor and also the first husband of the great writer Enid Blyton.
Oh, okay. Nice. I think I read about him somewhere. Yeah.
See that information obviously lodged in there somewhere. Last one for you, Brian, and this is to square it up. And as we always say, there's no tie break. We share the spoils if it's a draw. And it's
no chance.
Well, you know, Mark's frantically looking on there. Mark's frantically googling bollocks. Let's see if we can get
very common pastime. Very common pastime of mine.
So the final one for you, Brian, is Ben Pollock.
Bollocks.
Oh, and at least we don't have a tie break because he's blazed it wide. It's true. So Pollock. Ben is a defender in non-league with the likes of Spennymoor, Hereford, Boston, and now Chester. He also happens to be the older brother of Matty Pollock from penalty number 4, and another son of Jamie Pollock from number 1.
Hey!
Pollock
Absolute
family
brilliant quiz. Amazing
Pollock
research.
family tree.
Yeah. If there's ever a gig going on, Only Connect, then I'm going to stick my CV in.
Or if any of the Pollocks want to do, who do you think you are?
Yeah. Yeah, I've done most of the research as it happens, yeah.
Yeah, just one family.
Okay, so our new Focus On feature is back, where we pose personal questions to our guests based on the old Shoot and Match magazine player profiles of the 1980s. Remember, these are questions that Choccy fielded in these mags when he was playing for Celtic and Manchester United back in the day. So, quick fire. Are you ready, John?
Yeah, I'm just thinking in the 1970s, he used to get shooting. He was always favourite singer, Frank Sinatra, favourite food, scampi and chips.
Yeah.
until Brian came along.
Yeah. Brian definitely shifted the needle when he came into play with these things. So, okay. Full name?
John Robb.
Birthplace and date?
Fleetwood, 1961, 4th of May.
Football hero as a child?
Mickey Walsh. Although probably George Best is going to be.
George Best.
I have to go beyond Blackpool because I saw George Best. He played for Fulham against Blackpool. And even though he's drunk, he's still the best player I've ever seen.
Most memorable match?
It's probably going to be that Blackpool game when we actually got on the pitch at the end. Yeah, they're all memorable that season till Christmas.
What was the first car you bought and how much did it cost?
Can't drive. I've got a bicycle. Does that count?
It's got wheels.
30 quid, so no one bothers nicking it in town.
What do you want for your birthday?
Nothing.
What, if anything, frightens you?
Nothing.
If you could
come in the background, Brian.
Yes,
somebody your neighbours.
It's a
fucking pain in the ass.
He's banging on the window now.
If you could come back in another life as an animal, what would it be
fucking
and why?
Billy Connor lookalike.
Oh yeah, Don.
I'll come back as an animal. I'll come back as a raven.
A raven.
Oh, goth.
Which?
Yeah, and the Vikings as well.
Yeah.
Smart birds, a raven.
Yeah, I've got them hanging out in my garden. I thought I was going to hear them in the background. Never mind Billy Connor lookalike,
Which pop star would you like to be and why?
Well, I'm myself, or more I am one.
Great answer. I was hoping you were going to answer that, and I thought.
And finally, do you have any recurring dreams?
No, I never remember any dreams at all.
Interesting.
It's not that unusual, is it?
just to recap on a couple of the answers that Brian gave in some of these. His answer to what, if anything, frightens you back in a 1987 version of this particular feature, he said the Conservative government. And which pop star would you like to be and why? He said also in the same 1987 feature, Shane McGowan for his good looks.
He did look good though. For the drink really got to him, Yeah, I was with Spider the other day, Brian.
Yeah.
The other guy at the Pogues, he's a really good guy.
I'm going to see them, and they're doing the Red Roses for me in Dublin in December, so I'm going to that.
Yeah, I was going to help him get the word out about that. He's a really good guy. I never met him before, but hung out with him a couple of days. He's really sound.
No, I don't think I've met him either, no, but I'm looking forward to that. It'll be really good.
It's great, isn't it? It's a great band, really. They saw him a lot in the early days.
Oh, yeah.
You're not on the guest list for that one as well, Brian, are you?
Not yet.
I just wanted to.
I bought tickets.
Oh, sure you are. I wanted to ask.
That doesn't mean I wouldn't go for a cup of tea afterwards if that's available.
If you turn up with a mandolin, they'll probably just let you on the stage because you look like you should be in the band.
Pretend I'm one of the Dubliners.
yeah, like the oldest dude out of the Dubliners. He looks pretty amazing, actually, doesn't he?
Brian, the question about recurring dreams, I remember this from a kid reading this when you put it in the magazine. Can you remember what yours was?
It could have been running around with no trousers on, something like that.
No, I said recurring dream.
Was it just winning the league every year?
No, any recurring dream. And then you said in 1986 being shot. I just
I have recurring dreams of being shot, yeah. I have recurring dreams about tigers. I have recurring dreams about Alex Ferguson and all sorts of things like that. Yeah, loads of shit around my head. Absolutely.
I just wondered who it was that was you were dreaming nightmares about shooting you.
Oh, different people.
Yeah.
In different situations, aye. And I don't really watch. It's not as if I'm watching a load of programmes where people are getting shot in or something like that. It's just this idea, this thing of... It never hurts, though. I don't die or anything like that in them, you know. It's just
wake up.
Circumstance. I wake up, man. Usually, it's good that waking up. Yeah.
With a bullet hole in you.
Yeah.
It wasn't a dream.
Okay. On that note, we'll unplug the amps and put our instrument back in their cases for another episode. John, thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you very much.
Have you got anything coming up that we can get a plug in for?
Playing a couple of gigs in December, playing Albert Hall, Manchester, Shepherd's Bush Empire in London. And I'm just writing a book about Oasis, which will be finished Christmas, and I can cash in on the Reformation.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Where did you come up with the idea for?
I think they came up with the idea of the reunion based on your book. Is that, maybe they were holding off.
The interview I did with Noel the other week, I reformed the band. I want to cut.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I told him to be nice about his brother, and he was.
Okay, Choccy, Matthew, thank you both as usual.
No,
thanks,
pleasure.
guys.
And thanks, John. Great to speak to you.
Thank you, John. That was great.
And
thanks a lot.
And last but not least, thanks to you for listening. We appreciate you tuning in as ever. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter or X, as I should really start calling it. And we hope to see you again soon with another special guest. Cheers.
Life with Brian, talking films or music. Life with Brian, talking TV and food. Life with Brian, talking trivia and exercise. Life with Brian is different every episode. Life with Brian, talking politics and football. Life with